Welcome, super secret agent trainees, to WhizGirls Academy. Today we have a special secret agent master, Alejandra Parra-Orlandoni. I hope I said that right. And she goes otherwise known as Mapo, which could be, I guess, her secret agent name as well. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for taking the time to share your journey with us. So tell us about your childhood.
Yeah, so I grew up moving around a lot. I don't know if anyone listening has had that experience. It can be pretty disruptive, but I think also pretty exciting. My parents are from South America, and my family is originally from Italy and Spain. But I was born in Seattle, Washington, moved back to South America when I was a baby, and then we moved back permanently to the US when I was about 5. And we lived in Virginia and Texas and New Jersey. And looking back, I think moving helped me to meet a lot of new people. It helped me experience a lot of different cultures. I think the difficulties paid off. I also had a little brother, 5.5 years younger than me. He was a total troublemaker when he was young. I did a lot of babysitting and taught him a bunch of stuff, like how to ride a bike without training wheels. And so I think some of this experience was early training in leadership. So I would say overall, I had a great childhood, required moving around a lot, and I had a great little brother.
Wow. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your passions and hobbies as a child, and if you had a dream job.
Okay, this is a good question. I have always been interested in way too many different things. I loved art when I was little, so I spent a lot of time painting and drawing, and my grandmother would teach me some techniques. So that was really some quality time spent with my grandmother. I loved school. I was such a nerd. Both of my parents were engineers and really challenged me to do math problems at home, and I did it for fun. That's how I like to spend my time sometimes. I also loved reading. I read a ton of books. I was also really into music, wanted a piano so bad when I was little, and we couldn't get one. So my mom was able to find a guitar for me. And so I played guitar since the age of 6 and sang a lot and played a lot for my parents, which I'm sure they did not appreciate. And then I also spent a lot of time, I did classical ballet, I played soccer, I ended up doing some cheerleading at some point, and I did some martial arts and kickboxing. So I have just always wanted to do a lot of different things. And I never really knew one thing that I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be a professional soccer player. I wanted to be a choreographer. And it was always really fun to dream about all these things. But I had friends, one of my best friends, she knew exactly what she wanted to be as early as 3rd grade. She told me, I remember, I'd like to be an international corporate lawyer. I had no idea what that even was at the time. We don't have lawyers in the family. I had no idea, didn't know what a corporate lawyer was. And believe it or not, this is exactly what she does today, and she loves it. And in the meantime, back when I was a kid, I had no idea what I wanted to do. What I have learned, though, is that it's okay to not know exactly what you want to do when you're younger. But yeah, I've always been this person that loves to have my toe dipped in a lot of different things, and I really enjoy it.
Wow, it sounds like it. And we'll have to hear like how you actually got from all of those things to like specific things, because I think that's what our secret agents are doing as well. They're doing a million things, but figuring out what's really for them. And we'll get down to that. So in terms of dream job, did you have one? And like, what was that like being a kid and like dreaming about growing up?
I mean, I remember I did go through a phase where, like I said, I really wanted to be a rock star. I mean, really, I loved music. I played guitar. I studied guitar theory. Um, and then, I was starting to learn a bit more about technology, and I started to learn about audio engineering. So then I was like, well, maybe I want to be a rock star, but maybe I actually want to be the audio engineer that helps to actually make the music sound awesome. And then I learned about the light shows, and I was like, maybe I want to do the lights on stage for different bands. And so I would get kind of all encompassed in the world of whatever it is that I was dreaming about at the time. So, after my rock star phase, I went through a marine biologist phase, and I learned everything there was to know about, the different people that are involved in marine biology. They're the researchers, they're the people that create the equipment for you to go down and do the research in the water. And I just kept kind of, exploring all of these different kinds of jobs, all of the details, all of the different kinds of equipment and the people that might have to operate that equipment. And, I would just kind of allow myself to dream about being that person and kind of test it out and see, do I really like it? Maybe I think it's interesting, but maybe I just want to dream about it for 5 minutes and then move on. So I went through a lot of those phases throughout my entire life, and as a kid, and it continued through college too. I mean, I did not decide what I wanted to be when I grew up until I don't even think I've decided that now. So the exploration continues.
Yes, it's definitely an adventure, which we'll definitely hear more about as well. I'm curious. When did you hear about STEM, science, technology, engineering, math?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually had to look this up. STEM was not a phrase that was used until I graduated high school. But I do remember when I was growing up, there was this huge emphasis on math and science skills. And I had really great teachers that always encouraged me to lean into math and science. I also mentioned my parents, they were engineers, so they also encouraged this. But I will say one thing that's kind of interesting when I was thinking about, the whole STEM thing. All of my teachers and my parents, they also encouraged me to lean into the humanities, so social studies and English. And it created this really nice balance of understanding technology and math and science and all of this stuff in the context of this world full of humans that we live in. So I think it was a really nice balanced approach to do both the STEM and then also the humanities. And I'll just add this, back in the day when I was in high school and STEM was starting to gain traction as a term that people used, it also happened to be the time that the internet became a thing that people had in their homes, because before we didn't have it when I was a kid, and that cell phones became more common. So I remember with the internet, you needed modems to dial into the internet, and it was so slow by today's standards. I mean, it was just incredibly slow. And cell phones, we didn't have smartphones. We had these like brick things,
Yeah.
with real buttons.
My original cell phone was like, it looked like a brick, like box, literally. Yeah. And it was so heavy. And also when you were talking about buttons, I was like, yeah, it sounded like a fax machine was coming through. Like it sounded like something is taking over, like aliens might be taking over.
Yes, it was ridiculous. And I remember you had to pay the cell phones per minute. Like you had to pay per minute that you spoke, and you had to pay per text message. And then one of the most exciting things was when the phone companies invented free nights and weekends. So my friends and I would secretly stay up late to talk to each other. I'm not saying you should secretly do anything late, but we would secretly stay up late to talk to each other because we knew it wouldn't show up on the phone bill. So all of this, I'm only sharing this because I think that that shift of all of these technologies into everyday life really highlighted why STEM was going to be so important for our future and why it became so much more important to make sure that we were studying it and learning about it in school.
That's a really good point. And I'm curious, did you have any mentors along the way?
Yeah, I did. I actually had, I mentioned, really wonderful teachers. I had a fantastic algebra teacher, Mrs. Kopp. She was best. And, she really noticed early on that I liked math. And so she would kind of go out of her way to teach me a little something extra or just encourage me to continue learning and continue, going above and beyond what might be required. And I don't know, I really appreciated that. And she was never, pushy or anything. She was just trying to help foster my curiosity and try to give me problems and challenges that I liked. And she was fantastic. When I graduated from college, she actually came to my college graduation. Actually, she and a couple of my other teachers, other mentors, one of whom was this this social studies teacher that I mentioned, Mrs. Coughlin, another teacher that kind of saw my interest and excitement about things and really encouraged me to keep learning and exploring and just, I don't know, it was really, really helpful to find, those people that are going to be your cheerleaders and kind of help push you along and answer questions about life and about work and about school. So definitely really owe a lot to them.
Yeah, wow. That's awesome that your teacher came to your graduation. Like, that's very cool that you kept in touch for all those years. Okay. So you had a journey starting from the Navy. So tell us about that. By the way, thank you for the service. And like, then you went to Harvard Law School and got a JD. And then you went to MIT and got a mechanical and oceanographic engineering degree. So tell us all about that journey.
Yeah, it definitely has been a journey, and kind of a zigzaggy one for sure. So in high school, a counselor told me about this place called the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. There's a movie about the school. It's a terrible movie, but if you're curious, you should check it out. I had never heard about it before. Remember, my parents are not from the US. And so, we didn't know a whole lot about the American military or anything like that. But it turns out that the Naval Academy was a really great engineering school. And I had kind of decided in high school that that's what I would study. And I was also attracted to it because there was this physical fitness component because it's a military school. There was this, I don't know, there was kind of a mystique about it. When you graduated, you would be a commissioned naval officer, which sounded really exciting. I was wondering if I might be a pilot, or at the time, women couldn't be in submarines, but you could be on ships. So, I thought, this sounds like a great idea. So I went to the Naval Academy. I did study control systems engineering. So I learned how to build robots, how to create autonomous vehicles, so maybe ships that knew how to navigate themselves. And then I was really lucky and got a Navy scholarship to go to MIT to get my master's degree in engineering. And that's where I worked on autonomous controls for this underwater vehicle that was designed to detect and track activity in ocean water near the shoreline. So it would use sonar to see if anything was coming near a shoreline. And then the vehicle would kind of adjust where it was going to kind of make sure that it could keep track of whatever was making noise. So it was pretty cool. And after my MIT time, I ended up going to my first ship as a naval officer. I don't know how many of you remember 9/11, but 9/11 happened during my freshman year at the Naval Academy. So by the time I showed up to my first Navy ship, we were in the middle of the war. So I was pretty young. It was kind of scary. I showed up and walked onto the ship, and they said, "Okay, you're now in charge of these 20 sailors." And I was like, "Okay, I guess that's that." So, it was a pretty big responsibility, but I learned so much. We completed 2 deployments while I was in the Navy. We went to the Middle East, and we helped to keep some of the world's biggest oil platforms safe. So all the oil that we get for the gas in your car, the asphalt on the roads, things like that. We helped keep some of the superhighways that are in the ocean clear for navigation. It's really amazing how much stuff we rely on day to day that moves through these shipping lanes. So we were there to make sure that nobody could block them, that traffic could move clearly through there. And then we also went to the Horn of Africa and we did some counter piracy operations. And yes, we did catch some pirates. But what's really cool, and this is again my kind of nerdy side, is that the math, physics, engineering skills that I learned over the years actually helped me to understand how the ship and the equipment that we used on the ship worked. And it was really handy when we were solving problems in real time. So we had to land helicopters on our ship deck and figure out how to situate the ship, like which way to point, so that the winds were not too strong to create danger for the helicopter pilot. or we would be navigating around these fast moving boats while our ship was this flat bottomed, kind of large, clumsy thing that didn't move around a lot. So imagine, driving an 18-wheeler truck and trying to navigate it through a bunch of, Ferraris that are kind of zipping in and out. Like, how do you do that safely? So we had to really understand how our ship moved around and some of the hydrodynamics around it. And there were all sorts of things. Things would break, and we're in a ship in the middle of the ocean. We kind of had to just figure out how to fix it sometimes. So anyway, it was a really exciting time. And I finished my service in the Navy. I really was not sure what I wanted to do. Remember, I'm the one who loves to do all the things. And so, I taught physics for a little while at Rutgers University. That was, a nice way to kind of take time and think about what I might want to do. And while I was in the Navy, I had learned a lot about diplomacy, about the law, about how countries kind of work with each other. And I decided to go to law school. I thought it would be really interesting to learn about the world of law. Totally different. And if you remember, my friend wanted to be a lawyer. Lawyer was never on my list of things that I ever wanted to be when I grew up. But I did it. I went to law school. I learned so much. And don't tell anyone, but there was a class called Statistics for Lawyers. And I took it because I knew it would be easier than any statistics class I'd ever taken in college, and that I'd get an A. And I did get an A. It was great.
That's awesome.
A wonderful way to get a good grade. And after spending some time in the law for a few years, I really missed the world of technology. And so I moved into tech law, specifically. I started focusing there. And that led me to this world that I'm in now called a lot of things. It's called responsible innovation. It's called tech ethics. It's a very new field, so there aren't a lot of official names for it. But essentially, I try to help make sure that the way in which we build technologies and then the technologies themselves that we actually build don't just, earn people money, but also do good things for people and try to help people and make the world better. So this whole kind of path was very unplanned, very unforeseeable, but ended up being a really cool way to marry up my interests and experience in STEM and then this kind of legal angle as well. So eventually I made my way to the company Meta. Some of you may use Instagram or WhatsApp. And that's the company that owns those apps. And I would help the teams there to build apps responsibly and also share with governments and policymakers our own lessons learned and examples to see if we could help inform new laws, because we need laws to help make sure that people are building technology in a way that's helpful for the world. And then a little less than a year and a half ago, I ended up switching to this pharmaceutical company. That's where I am now. Very different, but I really wanted to work at a company that was developing a physical product as opposed to just software. And a mentor pointed me in the direction of this company I work at now called Takeda. And it's a Japanese company that's almost 250 years old. For reference, that's about the age of the United States of America.
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy. And my role at this company is to help build digital products in a way that's ethical and complies with laws. And it's really exciting because a lot of what we build at this company ends up transforming the lives of people who are sick and need help. So that's what I do now.
Wow. Okay. So currently you're at Takeda and you're the VP of Ethical Innovation and Privacy, right? But let's go back for a second. So MIT Research and Club Hez, you were an instructor, you were faculty at Rutgers, you said you taught physics, which is very interesting. Surface Warfare Officer at the Navy, General Counsel at DoD, which is Department of Defense, and then an RA at Harvard, which probably would have been an interesting thing on the side, I think. You probably have a ton of stories there. IP attorney in tech, and then you were at McKinsey for a while doing AI, and probably AI in a different way that we have it now. So tell us a little bit about that too, and if I missed anything in between.
Yeah. So I guess maybe I'll start with MIT because I remember that really fondly. Again, I had just been at the Naval Academy. It's this military school. And then I show up and I'm kind of free, this like normal college. And it was wonderful. And so I felt like I had so much extra time because I didn't have additional military classes or additional kind of military related extracurriculars. I was just studying. And so I ended up joining the kickboxing club there. And then the instructor who had been leading that club graduated or left or something. And I was like, oh, I'll teach the club. So I ended up becoming an instructor at MIT for the kickboxing club, and it was amazing. I ended up taking swimming lessons because I'm okay at swimming, but I always wanted to be faster. So I signed up for swimming lessons so I could get faster. I did a lot of stuff there. It was a really, really wonderful couple of years. And also super challenging. I mean, I was surrounded by some of the smartest people that I've ever been surrounded by. So I took advantage and tried to learn as much as I could from them. But it was a lot of fun. If that was a good time. If I could do that again, I would do it. If I could do the Naval Academy again, it's a great place to be from, but I'd think twice about signing up again because those years were really, really tough. The MIT years were fun. But yeah, it was great. And then, I mentioned the Navy time. And so then I did that stop at Rutgers, which was a lot of fun. I led a very small lab where we were trying to really improve the quality of the lab experience for the students. So we didn't have a lot of funding. And so we were really just focused on how can we make the experiments fun? How can we make sure that everyone's learning and having a good time and, loving physics, which is not always the easiest thing to do. It's a pretty tough subject. But that was pretty great. And then when I ended up at Harvard in law school, I showed up. My number one job was to study. And I had just come from working in the Navy for, all those years where your job is just nonstop 24/7. And, it's very exciting, but it's pretty intense. And there I was in school just studying. And I was like, oh, I feel like I have all this time. So I'm going to go find a side job. And I was really lucky and met these wonderful professors that gave me an opportunity to work for them as research assistants. So I got to learn a lot about legal research. I got to learn about how to write well. Engineers are famously horrible at writing. And so I really got some quick fire, boot camp style, this is how you actually write type of action there. And so I'm really grateful to those professors for giving me that opportunity. And in law school, and I think this is true for a lot of different schools, but definitely in law school, you always do a summer job. So usually you don't take summers off. And so one of my summer jobs while I was in law school was to work at the Department of Defense General Counsel's office, and I worked in their international affairs office. So this was an office that worked in the Pentagon. So I was, had to go through all the security and everything, which was kind of cool. And I was there without my uniform because I was no longer in the Navy. So, I would meet up with my officer and enlisted military friends. They'd be in their uniforms. They would complain about their uniforms. And I would say, haha, I get to wear whatever I want, which is always nice because when you work hard, it's nice to be comfortable. The uniforms aren't always comfortable. But anyway, it was really great. I learned so much about how the different parts of the military work together, how the different branches of the government work together. And I ended up working on a project around autonomous weapons. And so I worked a little bit on the policies around autonomous weapons. And this is now years and years ago. So things have gotten moved forward quite a bit since then. But this is when people were just starting to try to figure out autonomous weapons. Do we ban them? Do we allow them? What do we do with them? How do we think about them? what's their purpose in war? What should be their role in war? Should there be limitations on what we can build? Who can use what? And so it was just a really interesting time. And again, this kind of shows that intersection between technology, engineering, AI, and then policy and law. So I thought that was a pretty cool, peek into some pretty important conversations. But I was only there, just one summer. So, and then I got out. I spent a little bit of time at a couple of law firms. I got to learn a lot about different industries that way, because at law firms, your clients come from everywhere. They could be big companies, they could be smaller companies, they could be from the energy sector, they could be from the technology sector. And so I got to learn about all of these different things that make the world turn. And it was fascinating because every day I'd feel like I learned something new about the world that I totally had been taking for granted. Like, oh, I didn't know there was a company that did that, or oh, I didn't even know that job existed. So it was really interesting to kind of see all of these different companies and all of these different industries. And I definitely recommend that, at any time, if anyone has an opportunity to ask somebody what they do for a living, even if you don't think it's going to be that interesting, start to get in the habit of asking, because there's so many different cool possibilities in the world of what you can be and what you can do in life. So anyway, that was a really interesting experience for me. And then as you said, I went to McKinsey, which is a consulting company, and they had just acquired this small startup called Quantum Black. And Quantum Black, that they did machine learning and AI. And so they hired me as kind of like a mini general counsel, so still in a legal role. But while I was in that role, that was around the time that people were starting to talk more and more about AI ethics. And so, again, that kind of intersection between the technology itself and things like fairness and equity and accountability, just to make sure that people who build the technologies are accountable if something goes wrong. All of these conversations were starting to bubble up. And so I ended up spending a lot more time on those topics and less time on, kind of more traditional legal work. So anyway, I don't know if you have any follow-up questions about any of those.
I think just the only one that we didn't talk about too much was the Meta Facebook, and then also that you led a think tank there. So tell us a little bit about what that is. And I don't even know if our secret agents know what a think tank is. So if you can explain that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. So while I was at Meta, one of the things I did there was create this, we just mentioned it, this think tank thing, and really what the think tank was a group of people who would get together and try to figure out what are the most difficult challenges at the intersection of technology and policy or law. So what are the things that are difficult for us to figure out? How do we know what the right thing to do is if nobody knows what what the answer is? Like, some of the things that were coming up out of Meta were just brand new problems. So some of the topics that I focused on in this think tank were something called privacy enhancing technologies. So privacy enhancing technologies are technologies that help make sure that anything that's using personal information or the personal data of the public, of people, goes through some sort of processing or protective measure that makes it much more difficult for anyone to identify you individually. And so privacy enhancing technology is also very difficult to say. We can shorten it to PETs. So PETs are pretty sophisticated. There's some pretty sophisticated math around it. There's something called differential privacy that uses some pretty cool encryption techniques. There's something called homomorphic encryption, which can help kind of keep certain information segmented so that not everyone can see everything, and therefore kind of helps helps keep things separated in a way such that nobody can identify you. And there's a bunch of other different techniques. So what we were trying to figure out is how can, at Meta, for example, how can Meta use privacy enhancing technologies to make sure that its products were privacy protective? And then from those learnings, how can we feed that information back to governments and policymakers and academics doing research to say, like, hey, we think, we found out when we were trying out these different techniques, we found out that this worked really well. This was really meaningful for people. These other things, they sounded good, but they didn't work very well, or they weren't very meaningful for people. So that was one of the areas we worked on. We also worked on the metaverse. So, before Meta was Meta, it was Facebook, and then it went through the big rebrand, and it was changed its name to Meta because it was going to be the big metaverse company. And so they were using augmented reality and virtual reality. I don't know how many of you play with Quests or anything like that, but it was really big shift for the company, and a lot of time spent on developing these technologies. And so one of the things that my think tank focused on was trying to figure out, okay, we are creating, a lot of these new experiences for people. What kinds of things can go wrong, and how can we prevent them from happening? What's going to be most useful for people in the metaverse, and how can we promote those kinds of things? And so we were think tank, we were just thinking these thoughts and then trying to figure out how to turn some of this brainstorming into real actionable things that the company could do. And again, kind of feed some of the insights back to academics and governments to see if we could help them to understand, hey, we're first seeing some of these challenges. Maybe we can start thinking about norms or perhaps even regulations to help make sure that the future of the metaverse is a positive one for people. So I don't know if that makes sense, and happy to clarify more if it didn't.
No, I think that's great. I think that gives our secret agents an idea of what think tanks are and a little bit more about your journey from all of the amazing things that you've done. And I somehow have found time to mentor and be on board of directors and write and speak and be an ambassador and a volunteer. So tell us a little about that stuff as well.
Yeah. Again, this theme of I'm a person who likes to do a lot of different things. And I found that, I mentioned a couple of my mentors earlier, and I've had so many incredible mentors along the way in throughout my entire life. People who've been so generous to teach me something or advised me on something or, helped me figure out a problem. People who maybe didn't even know they were helping me. Maybe I had a coach. Okay, so I'll tell you this story. I had a coach when I was in cheerleading. Actually, she was tough. She was a tough coach. Her team was really good. Our team was really good. We competed. It was a competition squad, and we were one of the best in the state. And I remember I got a job in high school because I needed to get a job so that I could afford gas to drive to school and all of these things. And I had this wonderful job at my martial arts school. And one of the things that my martial arts instructor said to me was, listen, I think you're ready to teach a class. Would you like to teach a class? And it's on Saturday mornings. And I said, yes, that would be amazing. I would love that. Well, it turned out that the Saturday morning classes conflicted with cheerleading practice. And so I remember going to my cheerleading coach, and she said to me, well, you're going to have to choose. It's either your job or cheerleading. And I was like, wait, that's not fair. I'm working. It's not like I'm skipping out because I'm trying to have fun. But, what do you mean that I can't choose? That's not fair. And she said, listen, there are 20 other girls on my team who are going to show up on Saturday morning, and they're giving up all sorts of things to be there. And it's not fair to them for you to skip out and then still have a spot on the team. So in the end, what ended up happening is I had to retry out for the team the following season, and I ended up, making the team again. But I opted out of that one season and worked and decided to work because that was more important to me. So I'm sharing this because to me, that was my very first lesson in really just having to take accountability for your decisions, and that sometimes you have to make really tough decisions. And even when things don't seem fair, that's just the way life is. And I mention it because this woman, I don't think she was trying to be my mentor, but she ended up really teaching me one of the most important lessons of my life, and pretty early on in my life too. So anyway, all that mentorship that I've received, I find it, as you can tell, very valuable. And so I always try to find time. I always do make time to try to give back because I think that's the way the world keeps moving forward. I learn lessons. It doesn't seem right for me to keep them. I want to pass them on to other people because people were so nice and generous to share some lessons with me, and I want to do the same for others. So yeah, I think that the mentorship thing is really important. And then, I do other external activities like speaking. I write for fun. I do advise a couple of startups. It's mostly out of curiosity. I want to learn about something. Best way for me to learn about something is to kind of sign up to speak about it. And then I have to learn about it because I'm going to be speaking about it, or to sit down and write something about it. Because in order to write, you kind of have to think through all the different, the logic flow of what you're writing. You have to do some research sometimes. And then with the startups, a lot of these startups are my friends, or people I admire. And I just hope that I can do a little bit to help them out, however I can. So yeah, so I like to find time for all these sorts of things because I think for me, they're really important. I don't know. I like to have that interaction with people in different ways like that.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. Literally, like, it's really important that we're here to experience life, but also to give back and make a difference. And like, you've had different experiences. I've had different experiences, like everyone has. But like, if we share and help each other grow and learn, that's literally why we're here. So that's a really, really good point that you hit on. Okay, I'm going to switch to some student questions. What superpowers do you find you have that pushed you to where you are today?
That's a great question. So let's see. I think one of my superpowers, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, so maybe this is a little bit cheating, but it's curiosity. I'm so driven by curiosity. And I think that coupled with curiosity is I don't know, the discipline to go and find out the things that I'm curious about. So I'll share a really quick story. When I was little, anytime I asked a question, my parents would say to me, "Oh, go look it up." That was their answer. They would never give me the answer to my question. They would just say, "Go look it up." And I think that helped me not only become pretty self-sufficient in trying to inform myself about things, but it also fostered this mindset of curiosity and learning for the rest of my life. And so I think that's that curiosity thing, and then the willingness to go do the work to kind of figure things out and learn. I think that's probably one of the biggest superpowers.
Okay, awesome. What did you learn when you were 11 years old that you've kept with you today?
Um, I think maybe I'll talk about for this one. I mentioned one of my teachers earlier, Mrs. Cogland. So she was my social studies teacher. And um, one of the things that she was really, really big on and very strict about was our critical thinking skills. I know that sounds kind of dorky, but um, I really, really appreciated having a teacher who would always, she'd ask us a question, for example, and she'd say, okay, raise your hand if you think this, and raise your hand if you think, this other thing. And then she'd ask us why we thought the thing that we raised our hand for, and challenge us and force us to question ourselves, question our own assumptions. And I think this kind of push to be really, really constantly critically thinking about why it is that we think the things we do, question ourselves, question our own beliefs and our own assumptions has been so helpful. And, it's actually really, really important today, I think, because, if any of you out there are familiar with generative AI, it's a type of artificial intelligence that generates new content based on having seen millions and millions of existing content out in the world already. Um, One of the challenges about generative AI, and a lot of people are using this AI today, is that it's not always accurate and it can create, fake information and in ways that are very convincing, and you would never know that it's fake information. And it can have some really serious consequences, for example, in elections or dealing with pandemics. And so I think the skill of critical thinking and 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 again, I owe a lot of this to my teacher, Mrs. Coughlin, and other teachers too, but the skill of critical thinking, I think, could not be more important today. Um, yeah.
Wow, no, that's a really good skill to have, and I'm glad that you pointed it out. So, on that note, what advice would you give our secret agent trainees aspiring in the audience?
Um, let's see. Um, I think that it's really important to keep an open mind about what you're going to be and what you're going to do in your life. And to try to keep checking in with yourself every so often and ask yourself, like, what am I passionate about? What am I interested in? And cultivate that. And I mention it because today, even if that passion isn't directly a STEM related topic, chances are that there's a way to very directly connect your passion to STEM in some way. We've talked about how I connected law and policy to STEM. Another example I'll share of this is a friend of mine who studied literature. She was a playwright, so she literally wrote plays. And she's now an internationally recognized expert in human and technology interface design. So, what buttons you press on an app and how it looks, or how a chatbot responds to you, or how a robot might move and how that makes you feel about when you see it, because she was able to translate her empathy and expertise in storytelling into the field of technology. So I just think it's really important to stay attuned to what you're passionate about, check in with yourself really often about it. It's okay if it changes. And, don't be nervous if you're interested in STEM, but your passion happens to be this other thing, because chances are you can find a way to connect it.
That's great advice. On that note, also, looking into the future is exciting. What do you imagine for girls in STEM down the road, and how can we make sure that everyone gets a chance to be part of the STEM adventure?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I think the future is bright. So I think that's the great news. There's a lot of awareness about how important it is to have all sorts of people involved in STEM and technology. People from all backgrounds, people from different places, people of all genders. I think the realization about how important it is to have that diverse background and experience as part of technology is super important. And so I think that in order to make sure that that future actually comes to fruition, I there's some policy things that need to happen, and I think companies are doing a better job of hiring. But I think from the perspective of someone who might be a student right now, I think it's just, if you're interested in the topic, speak up, start looking around for someone who can help you. Maybe you talk to your teacher, maybe they don't know about STEM or different technology topics or whatever, but maybe they can connect you with someone else who can. And so I think it's important to just listen to that voice in your head. Oh, this is something I might be interested in. Go ask. And it's sometimes a little bit of extra work, but if it's something that you see yourself potentially, being in that world, like, go for it. Just go for it. I think the world is very receptive to girls, to people of all backgrounds at this point, coming into tech. And so I think that the future is very, very bright and very positive in that sense.
That's so true. And that's why we're here and doing all this stuff. How can our special secret agent trainees follow your journey moving forward? Do you have a website? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? What's the best way to keep in touch?
I do have a website. It's called callmemapo.com. So callmemapo.com. And on there, there's all my links to the socials, to the LinkedIns and the Instagrams and all of that.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We're going to do key takeaways in a second, but first let's do the quick 60-second. So favorite toy as a child?
Oh my gosh. This is a tough one. Two. Can I pick two? Is that allowed?
Sure.
Okay. One of them was I had some Barbies, so I loved my Barbies. And then my brother, who I mentioned earlier, he's about 5 years younger than me. He had a bunch of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figurines, and I would steal them all the time and play with them. So I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys.
Yeah, I think we all had our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well. Yeah, definitely the case for many of us in those eras. Let's see, favorite superhero?
I think it was Batman. And actually, it's really funny because looking back, he was like the techiest of them. I didn't even realize that until like right now, but I thought he was so cool with his like little hidden lair with all the fancy cars and technology and everything. And also, I used to watch there's an old Batman, you probably know about this, the old Batman and Robin show. I used to watch that with my dad. And it was so dorky. I love that show, but it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it almost seems surreal now that we look back all these years and you're like, they really actually made that show and it was so funny and it was really quirky, definitely, but so good. And even that, like, the costumes were like fun. Yes. Like, yeah. Yeah, I think that was like the 70s or the 60s.
Yeah,
I don't know,
it was 60s or 70s. It was, yeah.
Yeah, wild. Okay, favorite video game?
My very first video game system was the Nintendo, like the classic NES system. I loved Super Mario Brothers. Like I did. I thought it was so cute. Hitting a little question mark and getting a coin, eating a mushroom, getting the little firepower from the flowers. I loved it. So I loved all of the Super Mario Brothers. And then I also really like Zelda. It's very, puzzle solving type of thing. So I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, both so fun. Did you see the Mario movie, the animated movie?
I did. It was so cute.
It was really cute. Yeah. Yeah, I'm itching to go to the Universal thing. I haven't gone yet. Like, I'm so behind, but I'll have to get there eventually. Yeah.
I haven't been either.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes. Favorite sci-fi? So we've had Star Trek, Star Wars, or something else, or both, whatever you gravitate towards.
Well, I'll give you two answers. So I actually loved Star Trek. Again, I think this is partly because my dad really liked it. And so I would watch it with him and it was so philosophical. It was a lot of fun. The other sci-fi I really liked, and there's kind of a silly reason for it, but I really liked the Back to the Future. And part of it is because when I was a kid, Pizza Hut had these like kids meals, and if you had enough of them, they would give you these like horrible, but I thought they were cool, plastic like neon colored sunglasses that were from the back. They were like not really from the Back to the Future movie, but in the style of the Back to the Future movie. And so I tried to collect all of them. So I really love that movie.
So fun. That's so fun. Yeah. Favorite animated series as a child or now?
Oh, so I actually really enjoyed a lot of the Batmans, unsurprisingly, but I also really liked Gargoyles. I don't know if you remember that at all, but it was these like gargoyles that would come to life. Like they protected this building and then they would come to life. I can't remember why I liked it so much, but whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, that and the Batman cartoons I really loved. Oh, wait, and She-Ra. I don't even know how I could forget She-Ra. I actually
Yeah.
have my original She-Ra figurine from when I was a kid. I still have it. It's like, I'm looking at it right now. It's over there.
Yeah. That was a really good one, actually. I remember watching He-Man and She-Ra, and then I found out there's this docuseries on Netflix about the toys that we grew up with or something. I don't remember, but they had this whole thing on Barbie, which I was shocked because I'm like, I worked there and I didn't know any of this stuff. Like I think it's like Zsa Zsa Gabor's husband was the first engineer of Barbie. Like I had no idea. It's wild. You got to watch the documentary. It's insane.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, wild. Okay, and what about favorite show now? If you're watching something now.
Oh, I I don't know that I have a good favorite show to share. I will say a couple of things that I've been enjoying, but none of these are new shows. Like watching them again, probably for the millionth time. But I'm a huge fan of Gilmore Girls. It's my classic fall show. I like the new She-Ra cartoon, so I've been watching that. I actually haven't watched the last couple of seasons, so I want to catch up on that at some point. And I really, really love cooking contest shows. I don't know. There's something really relaxing about watching other people cook. Maybe it's because it gives me an excuse to go like snack on something.
Yeah, really fun. That's awesome. All right, let's do key takeaways. And please let us know if we missed anything. So feel free to chime in. It's okay to not know what you want to be when you grow up yet. Grasp the many opportunities around you. Yearn to learn something new about the world. Get into the habit of asking. Find mentors who are open to sharing experiences and support with you. Soothe your curiosity by learning and finding out about it. Find the willingness in you to research topics on your own. Keep an open mind about what you'll be in life. Check in with yourself often about your interests. Cultivate your passions and see how they can connect with STEM.
I love that. That's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. It was such a pleasure to learn more about your journey, and I'm sure that our secret agents will probably reach out and have more questions for you on their own. So that's it for us today for WhizGirls Academy. We'll be back again tomorrow for our next Super Secret Agent Master Trainer. Thank you again, all.
Thanks, everyone.